So after a workshop I gave once, I was talking to a group of faculty, and there was an older faculty member there, and he said, look, I may be doing it all wrong, but I'm doing it in the proper and customary way. That made me laugh because that perfectly encapsulates history teaching. There's the proper and customary way that's developed over the last 100 years. And that proper and customary way is to a professor lectures, the students listen and write down everything they can. They take a midterm and a final exam, and maybe they write one paper. That's the proper and customary way that was in place all across the country 20 years ago. The problem with the proper and customary way is nobody learns that way, or almost nobody. Maybe the very best students, who are best prepared and smartest students, can learn that way, but everybody else is excluded because they don't know what to do. And there's no research on how human beings learn that shows that you learn by listening to somebody talking. What the last 50 years of research on learning shows is you learn by doing. So, when I realized that my proper and customary way of teaching history wasn't working and that I was leaving behind 90% of the students, I set out to develop a pedagogy where they would do what historians do. And surprise, historians don't take midterms and final exams. And surprise, we don't really even write short essays very much. What we do is we practice habits of historical thinking that we've been trained in since we went to grad school. And these habits are really useful to just normal people. They're problem-solving skills. One of the problems with the proper and customary way is you walk into a history class at college and it looks exactly the same as introduction to sociology class or introduction to biology class. There's a professor lecturing, students are listening. It's a generic pedagogy. What I wanted to do was invent a pedagogy unique to history's signature mental habits. And so now, when I'm going to class, I don't walk to class thinking, what am I going to say today? Instead, I walk to class thinking, what are they going to do today? What am I going to teach them to do today that historians do? And in my introductory history course, I have 6 habits of mind that historians use to solve our problems, and I teach them those habits of mind. On any given day, the topic is how the Cold War got started, or women's lives in the 50s, or coups against governments during Reconstruction, whatever. But on that day, I'm not going to tell them what the truth is about the past. I'm going to empower them to practice these historical habits of mind and figure it out themselves. And so when somebody comes to visit my class because they're interested in how I teach, usually the first thing they say is, wow, your students are so busy. Yeah, it looks really different from the proper and customary lecture type class. And I call that a signature pedagogy because the teaching and learning itself bears the imprint of the discipline of history. And every discipline should be taught that way. Professional schools do it that way. So like a law school classroom doesn't look anything like a medical school classroom or an engineering school classroom. That's one reason why our professional schools are so good at what they do. They develop these signature pedagogies. It's only with undergraduate education we have generic, one-size-fits-everybody type of teaching. And what I've tried to do in the last 30 years is replace the proper and customary way with a history's signature for teaching and learning.